So I am so excited for this episode. If you couldn't tell from my outfit, because I have like the ill side pony. I'm more rocking a lot of neon fur goth, which is really saying something. We're going to the 80s for my section today.
Okay, I cannot wait and I am so excited. Thank you for joining us. My name is B. Sampson. I'm the perfumer behind Venus Invictus, and joining me is my co-host.
I am Melissa Sifjardóttir, and I am the perfumer behind Sif Sniffs.
Thank you for joining us on Sillage and Sorcery.
B is going to start us off talking about today's ingredient, which is Civet. They're so cute.
It is one of perfumery's most fascinating and polarizing ingredients.
That came across on my end of the research too, how polarizing this ingredient is.
This weird, mysterious substance has a very rich history. It's very complex. It's both divisive and also alluring. It's so weird to me.
In every perfume that I looked up for this week's episode, every description was like, it smells like an animal's butthole, but also I want to keep smelling it.
Well, yes, because there's some fun, interesting chemical aspects that are in line with that. So first things first, let's talk about it. What is Civet? For those of you that are listening that are perfumers, you probably already know. But if you're the average Joe, you probably are not familiar. So Civet is a natural secretion produced by the civet cat. The civet cat is a small nocturnal mammal found in Africa and Asia. But despite its name, it's not actually a cat. It's closer related to mongoose, which is mongooses. So these animals produce a thick paste,
So gross,
like substance from their perineal glands, which they use to mark their territory, much like how cats spray. And in its raw form, it has an animalic odor that's both...
Your face. For those who are listening on like Spotify, Beats Face this entire episode has been just a face of unbridled disgust.
It's a gnarly ingredient to work with. The undiluted, pure form of civet smells like garbage poop, okay? Weird, like garbage poop. That's period, point blank. But when you process it and you dilute it, it becomes something completely different. It's warm, musky, and incredibly complex. It's something that you can't stop smelling. You want to smell more of it, which is such a weird thing to me. Now, let's break down the science behind what gives it its unique scent. So the key to Civet's fragrance lies in a compound called civetone, which is a macrocyclic ketone that gives it its signature warm, musky aroma. Civetone is incredibly stable and long-lasting, which makes it a game changer fixative for the perfume industry. It's the backbone of civet scent, but that's not the only player. Civet secretion also contains scatol, which is a compound in high concentrations that has a sharp fecal odor. In small amounts, scatol adds depth and an animalic edge that's hard to replicate. When it's unprocessed, though, there's a lot of it present, and that's what gives it its poopy-doopy smell. But when it's age diluted, the initial pungency will soften, leaving a rich, sensual scent that's both leathery and a little floral. The transformation is what makes Civet so valuable to us as perfumers. It's an ingredient that is a chameleon, right? It blends seamlessly with notes to create fragrances that are deep and unforgettable, quite frankly. So now that we have that out of the way, the two main smells that create Civet, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Civet. Like, how did we discover it? How did we figure out, like, oh, this mongoose cat thing has a weird smell?
And their butthole. Like, that's the other thing that's very interesting with using Civet as a perfumery ingredient is it's butthole. Like, it's not any other part. It is straight up butthole, and it smells coming out of Civet like a butthole.
It's actually really interesting, much like Ambergris, if you were here for our last episode, there is not one single person that's ascribed to the discovery of civet. Its usage dates back thousands of years, with ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Chinese incorporating it into fragrance and medicine. They believed that civet had healing properties and, much like ambergris, aphrodisiac effects, which I find utterly repulsive. By the Renaissance, civet had made its way to Europe, where it became a symbol of luxury and sophistication. It was a key ingredient in many early perfumes, often paired with florals and spices to create opulent, multi-layered scents. But civet's story isn't without controversy, of course. Traditionally, civet was harvested by keeping civet cats in captivity and manually collecting the secretions, which I will leave that to your imagination of how
That is the worst job ever.
Could you imagine just having like this like room full of like mongoose cats and you're like have to go scrape their buttholes? No, absolutely the fuck not.
Also, you probably are getting paid because it's such a high value commodity.
Yeah, I mean, if you're selling it to these like fucking rich socialites, yeah, of course. I would do that in a heartbeat. Yeah, of course. Give me your money. Smear this doo-doo paste all over yourself.
Have fun.
But of course, practice of like keeping these animals in like rooms and cages has very serious ethical concerns, especially as awareness of animal welfare grew into the 20th century. By the late 1900s, the use of natural civet began to decline and the fragrance industry turned to synthetic alternatives. So the shift to synthetic civet was a game changer for the perfume industry. In the 1920s, chemists successfully synthesized civetone, the key molecule in civet, allowing perfumers to recreate its scent without relying on animals. Its innovation not only addressed the ethical concerns, but also made civet more accessible and consistent in quality. Because you have to imagine, much like how essential oils based off of where they're from can vary in their scent profile, the same thing is said for the civet cat. Each cat, you know, if they're not eating the same exact thing, it is going to vary from cat to cat. So it was a way to like basically revolutionize the industry in making an ingredient so close to civetone, so you can have that like streamlined process for like mass production.
I was wearing a perfume of yours this week that had civet in it. At least in the description.
Yeah, I have a synthetic civet, which is an interesting ingredient. I have had natural civet in the past, but I actually ran out of it a while ago and decided not to get it again. I'm just going to stick with a synthetic alternative. Better for the animals in general. I also don't want to be contributing to an industry that is either harming animals or using them in any type of exploitative way. This basically the story of civet, from its origins to its wild transformation into a cornerstone of modern perfumery. It's an ingredient that is captivating and weird and complex. I think that, like, for me at least, it reminds me that, like, the most unlikely of ingredients can be used in perfumery.
Yes, absolutely. That being said, this is our second animal episode. So, what are you noticing on your end from animals being an ingredient?
I notice that there's an exploitation of them
For sure.
once it's discovered. But I also notice that, like, thank God for science, because we find alternatives, and which opens up a broader world of perfumery and ingredients, which I think is cool.
I also think between the ambergris episode and this, there's a lot of discussion about animal byproducts, which is just how I'm going to phrase it, animal byproducts, because saying poop from a mongoose is not that great. But they don't necessarily have a huge scent themselves. They more enhance other scents.
I think that it's interesting you see a lot of these byproducts as like fixatives for fragrance for the materials that are a little bit more ephemeral, meaning that they will evaporate the quickest. It's interesting that they end up being like anchors for perfumes.
And
I
we
think
had that in
that's
both ambergris and civet, that like it's not a top note. It's not going to be the first thing that you smell, but it is going to create that lasting beast mode, smack you in the face, feel like you're fighting
right.
level of fragrance. The moment we ended last week, I got to go and look through the Civet perfumes. Originally, I was going to go with a Labo perfume, but then I saw another fragrance that, fun fact, I used to wear back in the day. I want to say it was like 8 or 9. I also purchased it. So we're going to have a smell test at the end. So I am excited for this fragrance. How it impacted pop culture in general, because this fragrance is the first of its kind. And the perfume we're doing this week is Elizabeth Taylor's Passion.
Yes!
So what is your familiarity with Elizabeth Taylor's Passion?
I think it might actually be one of the perfumes that my mom used to wear when I was growing up. But other than that, I know nothing.
Okay, so I'm going to take you through a journey. Also, for our listeners, it's going to get dark because when we're talking about celebrities and celebrity lives, especially before modern times, stuff gets dark and stuff gets dark real quick. So listen with care. Trigger warning specifically, we're going to be talking about domestic abuse. We're going to be talking about childhood abuse and a lot of other not great things. So just be careful and protect yourself. If you need to go, you can go. It's a fascinating story, but it's not worth your mental health. So, Elizabeth Taylor is a Pisces. She was born February 27th, 1932. It kind of checks out with like what we know about her public persona for her to be a Pisces.
I realized she was a Pisces. I could have honestly guessed.
From an early age, her parents are considered social climbers. They're living in Britain when she's born, but very quickly after she's born, they move to California. Elizabeth's 7 at the time. The main goal is for her to be famous. According to Elizabeth's own writings and her own testimonials, that is the impression. However, there are sources that say that the family moved to escape World War II. So we don't 100% know, but as far as Elizabeth is concerned, she's like, we moved because I needed to be famous. Her mom is the biggest momager before the Jenner-Kardashian clan got a momager. Her mom is also a former stage actress. Elizabeth is doing acting exercises in a mirror for her facial expressions from a very, very early age. And the goal is you need to be famous and you need to support the family. So at 10, she lands her first role. But at 12, she stars in a movie called National Velvet. This gets a lot of critical acclaim, and she signs with MGM, making the equivalent of over $600,000 a year in today's money.
Woo!
So she's 12, and she's supporting her family.
That is insane. I can't imagine.
At 14, basically the moment she hits puberty, momager makes a transition to selling Elizabeth's sex appeal. She starts getting photographed in bikinis. She starts winking for cameras. Once again, 14.
It was a different time.
It was a different time, but that's still not
That's
great.
insane. That's insane. For any mom to put their child through that I can't imagine.
But playing devil's advocate, not that I think this mom is great. That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money.
We get all these horror stories of child celebrities, but money is money, fame is fame, and a lot of people want it at whatever cost. At 18, she marries her first husband. She's very well known for having 8 marriages to 7 different men. I love your face. I didn't know you didn't know that. I thought that was the most well-known thing about Elizabeth Taylor was how many times she was married.
I had no clue. I thought it was 2 or 3. I didn't realize it was 7.
7 different guys, 8 marriages. She married the same guy twice back to back. She divorced him and then married him the same year. Which is also very Pisces. I feel like Pisces are like, they're so dreamy and so imaginative that they're gonna like dream up a relationship that when it's not what they think it is in their head, stuff goes sour. So Conrad Hilton Jr. is the heir at the time to the Hilton hotel fortune. He's the grand uncle of Paris Hilton, who is also a celebrity with their own fragrance line.
Absolutely.
I like searched the entire Hilton family tree.
Crazy.
The Hiltons are considered new money, so they're not really established in high society. Conrad also has a crazy history about being a playboy, including when I was researching, this boggled my mind. He has an affair with his own stepmother while his stepmother is still married to his father.
Oh my God.
There is so much drama. Also, because we're looking at 1950s at this time, MGM pays for their wedding for the publicity. MGM is doing all like the photo shoots, trying to get like as much publicity on it because it's going to further their money by making Elizabeth Taylor that much more of a star. This relationship is fairly toxic, both in the tabloids, what got leaked, and then what Elizabeth and family members kind of said later on. Elizabeth does get pregnant at one point and loses the pregnancy because of the level of physical abuse.
Oh.
Conrad Hilton Jr. eventually dies from what's speculated as a drug overdose because he was combining sleeping pills with hard liquor, and he dies in his 40s. So there's a lot of substance abuse on both parties.
Right.
Elizabeth also later on gets checked into the Betty Ford Clinic. So there is this element of substance abuse and how it is connected to domestic abuse. It also seems that they weren't super in love with each other, that it was mostly a marriage of convenience and both wanting to climb up the social ladder, both of them seeming to benefit from the marriage, even though it's not necessarily based in romance. So she gets super famous in the 1950s. She's getting nominated for Oscars. In the 60s, that's when she starts doing Cleopatra, which is one of her biggest roles.
Honey.
Iconic. 100% whitewashing. Also 100% iconic.
Yes.
The biggest scandal she was involved in and how it impacts her career is actually really entertaining. Have you heard of the Eddie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds, Elizabeth Taylor drama?
I actually really love this channel on YouTube. Dakota, my partner, they are obsessed with this YouTube channel. It's called Be Kind Rewind. She'll do like deep dives into like old Hollywood actresses. So I am familiar with the little drama moment that you're about to tell us about.
For millennials and maybe Gen Z, I don't know. Y'all are babies. But it does have big Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, and Jennifer Aniston vibes, where Eddie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds are America's sweethearts. They're pure and chaste, and everybody loves them. They're also the parents to Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, and Elizabeth Taylor's third husband, because she's already on her third at this point, tragically dies in a plane crash. And Debbie is Elizabeth's best friend. So Debbie and Eddie started hanging out with Elizabeth to try to help her in her grief. Then things with Eddie start getting romantic. And Eddie Fisher leaves Debbie Reynolds for Elizabeth Taylor, being her fourth husband.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of this story, which I think is very interesting, is not only are the tabloids talking about this like homewrecker journey.
Everyone hated her.
Everybody hates her.
Yeah.
But she also is starring as the cat in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, which all the publicity is like her in a negligee on a bed. So it's continuing to play into this narrative of Elizabeth being this homewrecker. But I will say, takes two to tango.
100%.
Towards the end of their lives, Debbie Reynolds and Elizabeth Taylor were still friends and kind of like moved on from Eddie Fisher, which I think is also great. Both saying that they were better for leaving Eddie Fisher.
Listen, we love women supporting women.
So I love that that's the journey. Is we both made a mistake, and the mistake was dating Eddie Fisher.
100%.
So she divorces Eddie after falling in love with her co-star in Cleopatra, Richard Burton. This is the guy that she divorces and then remarries in the same year. They go on to star in a bunch of movies together, but by 1970, she's no longer seen as this like hot Hollywood ingenue. She's getting older, almost 40 at this point.
But you gotta remember, for the time when you hit 40, the only roles you were getting were like hagsploitation roles.
Witches, old ladies, grandmas. She also has a very different body type than what's seen as beautiful at the time, because now we have the Jane Fondas of the world. So it's very lithe, it's very lean, very long. That was not Elizabeth Taylor. At any point, her body now is being, I mean, her body kind of always was being picked apart, especially when you're 14 and in a bikini. But at this time, it's really being scrutinized. So she semi-retires, is what she calls it. In the 80s, she starts making a few cameos here and there. But she's also getting Lifetime Achievement Awards, and she's 50 in 1983. When we talk about her being considered old and past her prime, she's getting Lifetime Achievement Awards. When people are already like, you're out, you're good. It was a lovely run. So, in a really cool pivot, she launches Elizabeth Taylor's Passion in 1987. You know what also debuted in 1987?
What?
This fucker. I also debuted in 1987. Me, Passion, 1987 are iconic.
Wait, I don't think we talked about this for our listeners. For those of you that don't know, I'm a Aries. I'm an Aries Sun, Aries Moon, Libra Rising. And Melissa, would you like to share your big three?
I am a Leo sun, but I also have a stellium in Leo. So my Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Sun are all Leo. So I'm extra Leo. I am a Pisces moon and a Capricorn rising.
I love that Cap rising for you.
But yeah, my Pisces mood is feeling a lot of Elizabeth Taylor's dreaminess.
So you come out the same year as Passion.
Well, I came out technically in like 2018. Well, no, 2017. But, you know, I graced the world with my presence in 1987. So, what's interesting about Elizabeth Taylor's Passion is it's not the first celebrity perfume. The first celebrity perfume is Sophia by Coty, which is from Sophia Loren, but it is by Coty. So it's Sophia by Coty. With Passion, it's Elizabeth Taylor's Passion, which I think is a big difference.
It is. It's huge.
So Elizabeth Taylor owns and has the brand. It's not just like her name on a perfume. She collabs with Elizabeth Arden. It's a parent company, but by all accounts, she actually puts effort into creating this fragrance. It's not just, I'm snapping my name on it. She did promotion. She worked with the perfumers to make it. She was very hands-on with the process. Passion is described as featuring top notes of aldehydes, coriander, gardenia, artemisia, ylang ylang, bergamot, and lily of the valley. That's just the top notes. Middle notes are spicy notes, just listed as spicy notes. Sandalwood, honey, tuberose, patchouli, heliotrope, orris root, cedar, jasmine, and rose. Base notes are incense, civet, leather, oak moss, sandalwood again, musk, cedar, vanilla, and coconut. So basically everything.
Everything in the kitchen sink. Love that. 100%. I can imagine.
I have another lovely bit of history. Are you ready?
Tell me.
We're going to be watching the commercial from 1987 for Elizabeth Taylor's Passion. Please describe what you're seeing.
She is the moment.
She is the moment. She is very 80s.
Listening on Spotify, she has the best sleeves. I have shoulders, actually. They are puffy bow silk lavender shoulders. Open, like swoop neck. She has the biggest hair I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, it's getting cut off.
Can't even take it all in. That's insane. Okay, let's dive into this gloriousness.
Bee to the blossom, moth to the flame, each to his passion. What's in a name? Depends on the name. Shakespeare from Julius Caesar. Passion, I see, is catching. I sure hope so.
Elizabeth Taylor's Passion. And now, Elegant Whispers. Your gift with any purchase from the Elizabeth Taylor's Passion collection. Available at May Company.
Honestly, iconic. What? Just like
I'm giving you a quote. I'm looking into the camera
really
seductively. Passion.
What's in a name?
It is lovely and iconic, and I stand.
Oh my god.
She's at the end of her career. She launches this fragrance company. But that's like one of the biggest revenue streams for her. And between Passion, White Diamonds, which is the more iconic, I think, of the Elizabeth Taylor perfumes, Gardenia, at the time of her death, Taylor had an estimated $600 million to $1 billion estate.
That's bonkers.
And almost all of it came from her fragrance brand. Even 14 years after her death, her fragrance brand continues to bring in $200 million of sales each year.
That's iconic. That's iconic. There's no other word except iconic.
Iconic. And after all of the drama, the chaos, she got so involved in HIV and AIDS advocacy towards the end of her life, a portion of her sales to this day continue to benefit AIDS and HIV research, advocacy. And
It's so incredible. Wow. Elizabeth Taylor, y'all.
now, when it first came out, it was considered very high-end. Now you could get 2.4 ounce bottle for $20. And it's sold in almost every drugstore. Are you ready for a smell test?
Please unbox.
The bottle is still the same. The lines, the 80s-ness of it all.
Yeah, giving like Art Deco a little bit.
Yes, absolutely Art Deco. All right, I'm gonna spray the box because I don't know if I want to smell like this all day. Yeah, I see why it gets the description. All right, I will say the first things that are coming up are the ylang ylang, the gardenia, like this very...
Like white flower forward.
But then, like, the moment that goes away, you are getting the incense civet. It just smells like the 80s to me. Being, like, expensive, over the top, like, which I feel is the entire vibe of the 80s. In your face.
My goodness.
I'm getting none of the patchouli, none of the sandalwood, even though it's written down twice. But it's a lot. The more it wears down, the more of the civet I'm getting. And not in a good way. Okay, so that is going to go into the experiences that we have had. It's still lingering, like it's gone. I closed up the box. The box is to the side. It is still in my nostrils. How the hell was I going around as a 9-year-old to like 4th grade smelling like Elizabeth Taylor's Passion?
Smelling like a businesswoman in the 80s.
It's like way too many shoulder pads and just like a fucking bottle of Aquanet in my hand. But while I was researching this episode, I came across what has to be the best description ever. So I'm going to send it to you, and you're going to read it.
Okay.
It is from Reddit. And the title is Passion by Elizabeth Taylor. Liz woke up in 1988 and chose violence.
Okay, here we go. In a moment of ignorant hubris, I decided to blind buy a bottle, and y'all, the first spray triggered my fight or flight instincts. This is what Maleficent smelled like turning into a dragon. It's burning wood, poisonous flowers, incense, first-degree murder, and animal taint, and I love it? It makes me want to bite someone hard. I don't know where the hell I'm going to wear this scent, but it will be on days when I want to feel like an ancient evil sorceress taking revenge on an immortal foe.
Yes.
Who is this person? Can I send you samples so you can review my shit?
What I think is very interesting about this description is it describes a lot of what you were talking about in the Civet discussion, right? It is very much animal excrement, right? But at the same time, it also invokes this like carnal, lustful desire. There is a sub-comment. Once you've mastered passion, you may be ready for the final boss, White Diamond. To which case they comment, I honestly didn't have much interest in White Diamonds before, but after a few days with passion, I feel like Gandalf fighting the Balrog down to the depths of the earth and have 0 fucks left to give. Fight me, you glamorous bitch. With Elizabeth Taylor, we had this one come out in 87, White Diamonds was 91, but I don't feel like celebrity fragrances, at least my personal experience of them, didn't really take off until the late 90s. And then by the early aughts, they were everywhere.
You know, I never really got into celebrity fragrances. Like, the two that I was really in love with growing up were Alien by Mugler and Burberry Brit for women. But other than, like, every girl around me was wearing, like, Daisy, Marc Jacobs.
My little sister wears Fantasy by Britney Spears. To this day. To this day. And I do think that, like, when we take into account Elizabeth Taylor's whole story, there are a lot of parallels with Britney Spears. In a very interesting, almost creepy kind of a way, where, once again, told a bunch of stuff by the media, painted this picture that wasn't necessarily accurate to their lived experience. Once again, looking through it through the lens of time, it looks super sketchy. But I do think that, like, Elizabeth Taylor getting out of the Betty Ford Clinic, making passion, making celebrity fragrances, is kind of this trajectory that we see now in the world of perfumery, where once you reach a certain level of fame, they're asking you to make a perfume.
I had so much fun with this episode. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
And next week, we're going to be talking about... What ingredient are we talking about next week?
I actually don't know. Gotta look at my notes.
I'll give you a hint. It has to do with a beaver.
We're talking about Castoreum.
Just so that our listeners know, after Castoreum, we are going to segue to not animal byproducts.